Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to Get Hit with the Truth. So, just doing some recaps from over the weekend. We had 3 cards that took place on, the 14th, Saturday, August 14th. We're going to recap those. Hey, don't forget, guys, I'm pretty sure I'm coming back tomorrow night with my 3rd podcast. Tuesday night, what is that, the 15th? Or, well, the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th. On the 17th, August 17th, tomorrow night, I should be coming back with my 3rd podcast, 3rd episode. We're going to be discussing the Pacquiao and Ugas pay-per-view card that's taking place this Saturday, and then some of the fights that have happened since our last one, and also what's coming up in the month of the end of August, month of September. So, but let's get into the recap from Saturday. So, just real brief, you had Joshua Franco and Andrew Maloney went at it on the ESPN card. It was their 3rd fight. Maloney had won a decision the first time, really because of a knockdown in the 11th round. Their rematch ended early because of a headbutt and cut. So the 3rd fight, Maloney wanted to extract some revenge, and Franco wanted to let everybody know there was no doubt, and he did that. He outboxed, outclassed Maloney, unanimous decision. Arnold Barbosa on the undercard got a smashed on Antonio Moran for 10 rounds, got a one-sided decision. So those are the 2 somewhat significant fights that happened. Franco in the main event, now he's kind of in that dogfight of Chocolatito and Juan Francisco Estrada and those guys right there. So we'll see what exactly can go down following, all that. He's throwing himself into the mix a little bit more on what can happen at 115 now. Then on the Showtime card, Gary, one of the Russell brothers, disappointing. His fight ended 16 seconds in as he's trying to grow himself. A headbutt caused the fight to be stopped, and it went to a no contest. So no result there. But the main event saw Guillermo Rigondeaux against Casiermo. And Casiermo walked away with a split decision win over Rigondeaux. But, man, this might have been top 3 to 5 worst fights of all time. I mean, I'm glad I picked the fight up in the 12th round when I finally turned it on and came home. But I didn't miss anything, and I watched the punch stats. I don't understand how these 2 guys only landed 47 and 44 punches, and that's terrible. You had Casiermo landed 47 punches, which is almost 4 punches a round is all he landed, and Rigondeaux landed 44. And I just don't. This was a terrible fight. I mean, especially for 2 little guys, and Rigondeaux, his last 2 fights had really gotten in there and mixed it up with opponents. So you would think he would try to do that again, and everything to make his fights more attractive, especially if Rigondeaux wants to try to get in line for Nonito Donaire or the monster Neua Inoue, especially at his age of 40. And, man, what a stinker. Just a bad fight. Casiermo walks away with the win. Good, I guess good for him. But, yeah, these guys really didn't sell themselves in the main event on Showtime. So, disappointing, but you did have a winner in Casiermo. So, now the big fight card of the day had Virgil Ortiz and the Mean Machine, Kavaliauskas in the main event, Roger Gutierrez and Rene Alvarado in their 3rd fight rubber match. Now, the fights on the undercard, you had a junior flyweight title. Felix Alvarado retained his belt. And Pablo Cesar Cano, I can't see if he even fought or not. I looked, and it didn't even. There was no highlights on the DAZN thing. I don't think the fight took place. If it did, it wasn't shown on DAZN, because I was looking and I couldn't find anything on it. Couldn't find any results. So, no results as far as I know, and we never saw if there was a winner or not. So, that's it for for that undercard fight, the Cano fight, because I was really looking forward to him coming back against Danielito Zorilla, but they didn't even have a result on BoxRec.com. So, but the co-feature, Roger Gutierrez against Rene Alvarado for the WBA regular 130-pound title. This is a rubber match. Alvarado beat Gutierrez a few years ago, I believe in 2017. He stopped him, or he beat him. Yeah, he stopped him in the 8th round, or 7th or 8th round of their fight. He was winning that fight. The rematch was a good one. The rematch back in January, saw Gutierrez walk away with a razor-thin 113-112 unanimous decision. Basically, he won that fight because of the 3 knockdowns that he scored. He would have lost that fight 115-113 if no knockdowns had occurred, but he scored 3 knockdowns. That took away those 3 points, and he won that fight by 1 point on all 3 scorecards. So going into the rubber match, a lot of people, myself included, thought it was going to be another close fight. I thought Alvarado was going to pull it off, but I thought that because of their styles. And Roger Gutierrez decided to box a little more in this one, and he walked away with a clean, unanimous decision with nobody really complaining. So congratulations to Roger Gutierrez. Very impressed by that win. And, I can't wait to see what he does next. Congratulations to him. That was a big-time win for him that he needed. So, again, congrats to him. Very impressed by that. But now the main event. You saw Virgil Ortiz, the undefeated rising star at welterweight, had his toughest test against the Mean Machine, Kavaliauskas. Now, he went in there, and it was a tough fight. It was. Ortiz started the way we thought. He was boxing. He was doing a mixture of both. But you could tell just the talent and the amateur background and pedigree that Kavaliauskas has. Plus, remember, the Mean Machine went in there against Terrence Crawford and hurt him. Should have had a knockdown scored. He ended up getting stopped, but he was competitive in that fight. Kavaliauskas is a good fighter. But Ortiz went in there, and was trying in the second round. And he got caught and he got hurt. And Kavaliauskas jumped on him. But he weathered that storm. He ended up putting Kavaliauskas down in the second round. Kept grinding, kept putting it on him, and finally scored 3 knockdowns in the 8th round and finished him in that round. The referee stopped the fight, and Ortiz stays undefeated. Impressive performance as he continues to move forward towards something bigger. I mean, the guy does have the talent. Now, I know people are going to sit there and compare Virgil Ortiz to Terrence Crawford. And if for a second you have a chance to do that, you have the opportunity, you have the right to do that. But in all fairness, I think it's, I think it's unfair to grade performance versus performance against the Mean Machine. The reason why I say that is this. Now, Kavaliauskas is a very good fighter. He's a top 10 guy in any other weight class but 147 welterweight, because that is the best division of boxing, in my opinion, still top to bottom. 1 second. But I think it's unfair to compare the two performances, and the reason why, people forget about this all the time. It's about mind frames. It's about what that fight means to a guy going into the fight. That could affect the fight across the board. I've seen it happen so many times. Now, I liken this performance for Ortiz to the performance that Jermall Charlo had against Sergey Derevyanchenko. People say, well, Charlo beat Derevyanchenko better than Triple G and Daniel Jacobs. You're right, he did. But did anybody really take Derevyanchenko serious until the fight with Charlo? Did they take him serious going into the Jacobs fight? No. And Jacobs pretty much cleanly outboxed him in my book. It was a split decision, but I thought he cleanly outboxed him. I didn't think the fight was as close as they scored it. Triple G struggled with him. He was also sick that day, Triple G was. He went forward with the fight, hurt him early. But, I mean, you could easily argue that Jacobs and Triple G both were overlooking a guy with not a big name in Derevyanchenko. After Derevyanchenko almost upset Triple G, Yeah, he was taken serious at that point. He almost landed a Canelo fight. Canelo was seriously considering fighting him in 2020. So, you know, he became a serious enough contender, and Charlo went into that fight fully focused, knowing how good he was, and cleanly beat him. But I think it's unfair after that performance to say that Charlo is better than Triple G. I think Triple G had a totally different mind frame heading into the fight with Derevyanchenko, absolutely across the board. And I really liken that fight to this one right here between Ortiz and Kavaliauskas. Is Crawford going into the Mean Machine fight? Yeah, the Mean Machine was undefeated and he was a good amateur pedigree, all that junk going in, but not a lot of people knew Kavaliauskas and thought he was going to really do anything against Crawford. Crawford is a pound-for-pound guy and has been for years now. You can argue that he's the pound-for-pound best fighter in boxing, and everybody's been doing that, the experts, for the last 4 or 5 years with Crawford, you know, and Crawford is starving for competition, and so every time he gets in the ring and he's not fighting a top 5 welterweight that he's supposed to be fighting, he's very much so overlooking some of these guys. You know, it's natural for a guy of that caliber and that talent to overlook a fighter. And I absolutely thought Crawford was overlooking Kavaliauskas. And then he got hurt in that fight and almost put down. And it should have been scored a knockdown. And what did he do? He turned into it. He stepped into that extra gear, totally dominated Kavaliauskas after that, and knocked him out in the 9th round impressively. But Ortiz had the same mind frame that Charlo had going into the Derevyanchenko fight. He knew how good the Mean Machine was. He came in fully focused. He still got caught and hurt in the 2nd round, but he weathered that storm, broke down the Mean Machine, and stopped him in the 8th round impressively. But I really do not want to hear that for 2 things. One, that people think Ortiz is really ready for Crawford, because I don't think he's there yet. Wouldn't be surprised if he landed the fight. He is highly rated by the WBO, but, you know, if he landed the fight sometime in 2022, I'd be okay with that. I do think he's getting close to being ready for that, but I don't want people to say Ortiz can beat Crawford. And 2, I don't want to hear people say that Crawford is not as good because he struggled and stopped Kavaliauskas later than Ortiz did. You know, that's bullshit. Again, it's mind frames, it's mindsets, how you go into a fight looking at your opponent. People forget about that all the time. People just want to put it on a blank slate and go, okay, here's what he did and here's what he did, so this guy is better because he did better. And you know, sometimes you can compare opponents, sometimes you can't. You know, I mean, look at, who was it? Jaime Munguia fought Primožas Saleta, who Triple G had beaten last year. He knocked him out in 7th round, and Jaime Munguia knocked him out in 6 rounds. You know, does that mean Jaime Munguia is better? No, Triple G was overlooking Saleta a little bit, hadn't fought in a long time, and Munguia went into the fight on 13 days notice against Saleta and ended up stopping him. You could say that favored Munguia, or it hurt Munguia, you know, and he had the same he had the same mind frame that Triple G had. But I definitely think Munguia at least had a template of how good Saleta was because of the Triple G fight. You know, plus you have Styles making fights and everything. There's Vasily Lomachenko's going to end up fighting Richard Comey in December. If he doesn't stop him in 2 rounds like Teofimo Lopez did, does that mean he's not as good as Teofimo Lopez? No, because it's also Styles. It's also how you look at that fight. I mean, Lopez caught Comey when nobody thought he was going to, and hurt him and knocked him out early. You know, I'm just saying, guys, it's unfair to just go tit for tat and match up the 2 performances, you know? But at the end of the day, Virgil Ortiz, it was impressive as hell, the performance he had against Kavaliauskas. He's continuing to grow and get better and better. And Ortiz definitely has the talent to make a big impact in this division, and I hope he does. So that was it. That was the recap from Saturday, August 14th, ESPN, Showtime, and the DAZN recap. I know I went a little long with the Ortiz stuff, but It's valid arguments and valid points. I hope you guys enjoyed it. True Boxing, you've been hit with the truth.